family located in Allahabad. This is where Indira Gandhi was born on the 19th of November 1917. She had a rather lonely childhood. She was only 3 years old when her father, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, joined Mahatma Gandhi and plunged headlong into the freedom movement. He was away from home for long stretches of time because of his onerous responsibilities and his incarceration by the British authorities. Indira's mother, Kamala Nehru, also a freedom fighter, was constantly plagued by ill health. For a while, the young Indira was homeschooled. She then studied at various schools in Delhi and Allahabad before being sent to a boarding school in Pune. During this time, her loneliness was alleviated only by a steady stream of letters from her father. Letters that were later published in a book titled Letters from a Father to His Daughter. Indira was truly a child of the freedom movement. Right from her early childhood, she was in the midst of all the parleys and planning that took place at Anand Bhavan. From those early times and all through the freedom struggle, Mahatma Gandhi was a powerful influence on Indira, guiding her gently, shaping her political philosophy and ideology. As a child, Indira participated in the struggle for independence in a rather unique way. Inspired by tales from the Ramayana, she organized the Vanar Sena, or the Army of Monkeys. Children who would act as runners carrying messages to leaders of the freedom movement, right under the nose of the British authorities. When she was 17, she went to study at Vishwabharati University at Shantiniketan in Bengal. It was here that she met the great poet, writer, literateur, artist and composer Rabindranath Tagore. In fact, it was Tagore who gave her the name Priyadarshini, meaning beautiful to behold. Indira's time at Shantiniketan was abruptly cut short when she had to travel to Europe to take care of her ailing mother. Kamala Nehru passed away on the 28th of February 1936 while undergoing treatment for tuberculosis in Switzerland. Indira decided to continue her studies in Europe, joining Somerville College at the University of Oxford in England. She studied history, political science and economics. Like her mother, she too was plagued by ill health. She was forced to return to India before she could complete her studies. Upon her return, back in Allahabad in 1942, Indira married Firoz Gandhi, whom she had met while she was at Oxford. At that time, India's freedom struggle was underway, and Indira was jailed for 13 months by the British authorities as soon as she returned from her honeymoon. 1947. India finally attained independence.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge.
Jawaharlal Nehru became the first Prime Minister of independent India, and Indira assisted her father on a day-to-day basis. She became a close confidant and a trusted assistant to Pandit Nehru as he guided the first steps of an emerging nation. Having been tempered in the fires of the freedom movement, Indira now began learning the nuances of governance, leadership and global statesmanship. In 1959, she became the President of the Indian National Congress. Pandit Nehru passed away. In his death, Indira lost not just her father, but also her mentor, her guide, and one of the most powerful anchors in her life. Indira Gandhi's meteoric rise to power had only just begun. After Pandit Nehru's death, she was elected as a member of the Rajya Sabha and served in Lal Bahadur Shastri's cabinet as the Minister for Information and Broadcasting. In 1966, Lal Bahadur Shastri passed away. The Congress Parliamentary Party elected Indira Gandhi as its new leader. The enormous responsibility of leading the country was suddenly placed upon her shoulders. It was time to put into practice everything that she had learnt under Pandit Nehru's mentorship. She became India's first, and till date, the only woman Prime Minister, and went on to serve from 1966 to 1977. As Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi's leadership skills came to the fore. She was decisive, she was persuasive, she was progressive. She forged ahead, taking her father's legacy of transforming India onward to new heights economically, politically, and internationally. One of her first decisions as Prime Minister was the abolition of privy purses. In Parliament, Indira Gandhi argued persuasively against these special privileges, pointing out that they were incompatible with an egalitarian social order. In the early 70s, Indira Gandhi entered into a technology sharing pact with the USSR, a move that would eventually lead to the establishment of Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, sowing the seeds for self-reliance in aviation and air defense. Indira Gandhi stepped into her premiership during a very difficult phase in India's history. The wars with China and Pakistan in 1962 and 1965 were followed by two consecutive monsoon failures in 1965 and 1966. India was economically vulnerable. The Green Revolution under Indira Gandhi's leadership transformed India from an import-dependent country to a domestic production-driven, self-reliant nation. In addition to strengthening the nation, the Green Revolution was strategically planned to reinforce the sovereignty and independence of India's foreign policy. It enabled a strong, self-reliant India to negotiate from a position of strength. The Green Revolution was followed by the White Revolution, which transformed India from a milk deficit country to a milk surplus nation. Indira Gandhi played a key role in consolidating Pandit Nehru's vision for establishing public sector undertakings as the temples of modern India. She strengthened the public sector along with key sectors like coal, steel, oil and insurance, with a view to generating employment and protecting workers' rights. The adoption of a mixed economy model enabled the private sector to thrive simultaneously. To make banking and banking resources more accessible to the masses, 14 major banks were nationalized. This was a crucial decision that resulted in a far wider presence of bank branches in geographical terms. It also consolidated household savings and promoted investments in agriculture and in small and medium enterprises. Indira Gandhi accelerated India's progress in the field of science and technology. She played a key role in making India nuclear capable. The Pokhran nuclear test in 1974 demonstrated India's nuclear expertise and prowess to the world. She also oversaw India's leap into the aerospace domain with the launch of the Aryabhat satellite in 1975.
ऊपर से भारत कैसा दिखता है आपको?
जी मैं बगैर किसी झिझक के कह सकता हूँ कि सारे जहां से अच्छा।
Indira Gandhi was always known for her compassion for the poor and the downtrodden. This was evident from her pro-poor policies and her concern for the socio-economic conditions of the people. During her tenure, a new battle cry for the alleviation of poverty rang out. Garibi Hatao, eradicate poverty. Policy initiatives and programs were launched to alleviate both rural and urban poverty. Her policies brought Indira Gandhi closer to the masses. The people wholeheartedly reposed their trust in her, and in 1971, they gave the Congress a sweeping victory with a 2/3 majority in the Lok Sabha. Soon, Indira Gandhi faced an unexpected challenge. In neighboring East Pakistan, the Awami League, led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, won the elections. The Pakistan Army refused to transfer power, leading to a people's uprising. An uprising that was brutally suppressed by the Pakistan Army. It was a conflict that didn't directly affect India. The mass killings, rape and other atrocities being committed by the Pakistan Army forced over 10 million refugees to flee to India. This was a humanitarian crisis of monumental proportions. Indira Gandhi withstood international pressures and supported the liberation movement led by Mukti Bahini. India's intervention led to the surrender of the Pakistan Army. It was a decisive defeat. Over 90,000 Pakistani soldiers were taken as prisoners of war, making it the second largest surrender after the Second World War. And a new liberated nation, Bangladesh, was born. In spite of simmering tensions between India and Pakistan, Indira Gandhi always pushed proactively for peace in the region. In 1972, she signed the historic Shimla Agreement to foster better relations between the two nations. Indira Gandhi carried Pandit Nehru's legacy forward, chairing the meetings of the non-aligned movement and the Commonwealth heads of government meet, showcasing India to the world and playing a decisive role in global policies and affairs. The refugee crisis and the war took a heavy toll on the Indian economy. There was internal turmoil. Indira Gandhi's political opponents were not reconciled to their defeat and came together in an opportunistic alliance to launch an agitation using unconstitutional methods to destabilize an elected government. Indira Gandhi's ouster was forced by coercion and means that were undemocratic. Indira Gandhi was left with no option but to impose a state of emergency. She had expressed a public regret for the emergency and its fallout. By conviction, Indira Gandhi was a Democrat. She did revoke the emergency on her own. All restrictions were lifted. Free and fair elections were held, and the Congress was defeated. She accepted the verdict graciously, and a new government took office. Indira Gandhi went back to the people. She faced persecution and targeted vendetta. After being elected from Chikmagalur, she was expelled from parliament and imprisoned. Undeterred, she took up the people's cause, and there was a groundswell of support for her. She undertook an arduous 63-day campaign across the country, travelling 40,000 miles, traversing 384 constituencies, making up to 20 speeches a day. In the midterm elections of January 1980, Indira Gandhi swept back to power with two-thirds majority in Lok Sabha, a mandate larger than what her opponents had in 1977. On the 31st of October 1984, the well-known British actor Peter Ustinov was waiting on the lawns of Indira Gandhi's residence. He was to interview her for a documentary film. As Indira Gandhi made her way to meet him, her own two guards opened fire on her. Today, as the nation commemorates her birth centenary, the people of India will always remember Indira Priyadarshini Gandhi as a courageous daughter of India, a people's leader who led by example, a statesperson with an uncompromisingly secular outlook, a leader who lived her life frugally and selflessly, a personality admired and revered by world leaders. The nation will always remember her as one who lived and died for India.